Good morning. It's the first daily of this week, 10/27/2025, and let's get into it. So we've got the map set up here. This is like a mausoleum is what I'm going for here. So we've pushed really hard not to get too into using primitives lately. That's kind of been my main logic is don't do primitives, just make bespoke or custom meshes. And I think we're getting pretty good. I mean, this is pretty close to like a video game map. Obviously, it's a lot of like rough elements, things that need to be polished and kind of taken care of. But I can see how we get to VRChat maps pretty quickly. And this only took me about an hour and a half. Yeah, about an hour and a half. And what's fun in Blender is we can actually walk around this map a little bit, so we get a feel for it of what it would be like as like a video game. I think it's pretty fascinating to actually be able to make a map and then just like walk around it right away. It's a lot of fun with that. I really like this little part over here where you got this like long turn, and then at the end of it, it's this kind of like sunken mausoleum there. Yeah, with just some texturing and some additional details, I think we could basically have a complete map. We would just need some objectives, game mechanics, and stuff, but we're getting there. We're really getting there. Excited. All right, let's get into the graph itself. So I have a few graphs actually. We'll start with a simple one, our little mausoleum object. So I'm going to duplicate this, bring it over here, because there's some other pieces we'll want to look at. Okay, so here in my components folder, I have this panel right here. I know it's a little hard to see, and I'm moving around pretty quick, but this is basically like a section of it. And I spent a long time making this node right here, face instancer. Super useful. Definitely recommend checking it out and downloading it, because it's basically it takes this mesh right here, and we can make a selection, and then it will take this object and try its best to map it to each face. It's different than instancing on faces, because this will actually distort and attempt to put put the object within the bounds of the original object to the bounds of the face. So from this top left corner to this top left corner, top right corner, etc., and it'll kind of snap it into place and distort it. So for example, we could actually take this object, and while we're moving it around, we could even take one of these corners and move it, and you can see that it's distending, which is awesome. You can't do that in a lot of other ways, so hope you all find some good use out of that. Okay, there's one other piece to the mausoleum, which is this little profile curve, and that's what's creating the curve up here on the top. So to actually get into the graph, first we of course start with our little box. Then I store some vertex colors on it, which you can't see at the moment. And then I have a selection, this bottom selection. So if I go here, weight paint bottom, I don't know why you can't see that. Where's my mesh? Interesting. Must be this. There we go. Okay. Weight paint. All right, here's the bottom. So we've got the actual just bottom of the mesh selected. We got a few other vertex groups as well. The weight paint, which is selecting this top edge. If I go to edit mode and select that, it's a little bit clearer on what's actually being grabbed there. It's just this top edge. And that's what we're turning into a curve and then lofting that profile around it to get our nice edge. Right here. And I really cannot recommend enough working this way with geometry nodes. You can use like a primitive grid and extrude it and try to build up a shape using geometry nodes, but it'll never be any simpler than just taking an object, being able to manually adjust it. So for example, like this, like I just don't think you're going to be able to do that any other way. And it allows you to create tons of variation, super fast, super flexible. Yeah, so anyway, sorry, back to the graph. It's a Monday, so excuse me for being a little scatterbrained. So here we have our object, then we go ahead and delete it. We get this profile. That's through that vertex group we made. And then we have another delete node, and that would be to delete anything that's not on the edge. Don't really need that here. Turn it into a curve. Turn it into a curve, and then that curve becomes a mesh. And we're just lofting, again, this little profile right here around that shape. Then I use set mesh normals just to prevent it from getting too smooth. And that's pretty much it. We do have a vertex color material. If you'd like to take a look at that, you can't. It's literally just this color attribute named base color getting plugged into the base color. I have a lot of plans for using vertex colors as a way to quickly and rapidly texture objects. If you're familiar with environment modeling, should be pretty straightforward to you, but coming from characters, I'm so used to like manually unwrapping things and painting them and having to be very precise. But it just occurred to me that vertex colors plus triplanar mapping will really simplify my life. So can't wait for that. Okay, so there's our mausoleums. I'm going to delete this one. And let's look at some of our other objects. So if I turn back on this whole graph here, the path that we have here and the terrain are actually two separate objects. What do I mean by that? So I'm going to hide that again and open up this other collection here called base. Now in base, you can see I have the path as its own mesh, and then I have the ground, again, as its own mesh. And this is amazing, again, because you can change things, you can paint things, you can inject really direct control onto your geometry node by having a bespoke mesh. So for example, if I turn back on this GeoNode, you can see that, let's do something fun. You take this one, and we could move it around. We can begin to adjust it and get tons of variety. Whatever kind of changes we want to make, they are pretty quick and easy. And we can, of course, like, if we wanted to push this one down into the ground, that's possible. If I turn off base, you can see it a little bit easier. Maybe we want this one in here, something like that. Anyway, I love that. I think that's awesome. So many quick ways to work. I mean, I could imagine building like 8 times the amount of map tiles just super rapidly, not having to think about this. So, okay, now let's look at the big graph, the big boy right here. So, like I said before, we take the original object, which in this case is this mesh. We're then going to set the position right here, so that the setting the position creates this nice undulation because we're using this noise texture. This is, if you're familiar with my work, that's pretty much my standard way. You can change the noise, make it as bumpy as we want. We can change the amount of offset. All of that is tweakable. In fact, I might make it just a bit noisier because I want to see what that looks like. Yeah, I like the other one better. Okay. So we just create that little undulation, and then we're adding some colors here, and that's actually using that same factor, which is, before I was using a distance node, but here we're sampling the position. So we have the original mesh right here, boom, little geometry. Then we're sampling the nearest position on our path. We're getting a distance from that, blurring it, boom, and then using that to store our colors right here. Beautiful. Then we're doing another set position using that same fall off, that same distance. We're sampling the position of the path and then moving our terrain to snap to the path, which is awesome. And it's so we first sample the path, and we take our original position. We get a distance from that. That's our distance right here. Then we compare how far is that distance, because we want to create a fall off. We want to create a range using that greater than comparison. Gives us a little control on how big that range is. Now we're also, again, we're using that to mix the colors, but then this way we're actually mixing the original position and the new position together using that fall off we created. Then we blur it because it's a little too harsh otherwise. In fact, I might show that to you. Without the blur, extremely chunky. With the blur, pretty nice. Yeah, set the position there. And then the rocks here are pretty standard distribute points. So we use that same density, that fall off, to control the density. Then we're distributing all these little points. I always put a merge by distance after I distribute on points, just because kind of cleans up the spacing. You don't get like random intersections for your instances, at least as much. And then we're putting these little icospheres on here. Icosphere it's pretty simple. It's literally just a primitive. I know I said don't use primitives, and in fact in the future I would avoid using that, but I just didn't have enough time to go back and change it. And then we just randomly rotate these instances, so we're giving a bit of variation, spinning them a little bit in place so they don't look the same. All right, and then we join that all together. So we've got our icospheres, our path. Oh, sorry, let me jump into the path because we didn't go over that yet. So the path, you saw it before. It's pretty nice. And it's just this very simple subdivided mesh. And then we store some colors on it as a starting point, subdivide it so we get this nice, interesting variation. I don't know if I would want this kind of crazy triangulated subdivision. Maybe. It's kind of cool. I think I'd rather have a more intentional pattern there. I just kind of liked how it came out, so I left it. Then we split all the edges. Then we start deleting some random faces to give this kind of destroyed look. We scale them a little bit so that there's little gaps between them. Scale each face. And then we solidify. So solidify is just a custom node that I made. It's basically just an encapsulated extrude mesh node. But allows us to automatically merge. Basically, it just works like solidify instead of extrude. And we give each extrusion a little bit of variation. So you can see we get this kind of nice texture, nice little bit of noise there. And then we store some colors on it. You can't really see it in the viewer, but there is some nice fall off on the side. So we can see kind of, we have this dark edge on the bottom and then a nice soft gradient. And the way we're doing that is we're mixing the color, or this like kind of gray color here, with, right, so it was black originally. Without the storing it here, it's actually completely black, and then we're storing this gray on top. And we're using the evaluate domain here in order to get a soft fall off. If I don't have that, it's extremely sharp, which maybe you want that look if you're doing like a comic book style. But for us, or for me, I want a nice little soft fall off because I like that look. All right, and then we just join all those pieces together. All right, deep breath here, little intermission. Next section. So here, what are we doing? Right? What is here? Bam. Get our path again. And this time, we are deleting everything but the edges. We go a few different directions after that deletion. You can see this node goes down here, or I guess we were using it a little bit further. There's still two splits. That's the viewer. Goodness. Okay, so we get the edges. Then we're deleting random edges, which I find is a nice way to break things up. And then I would love to just use the mesh to curve node on this shape, but I found that if you want to have them be kind of segmented or you've done some sort of deletion to an edge, you do need to do a bit of cleanup before doing the mesh to curve. And the cleanup for me is just treating each edge by itself, doing each one mesh to curve one at a time. If you try to do them all at once, they're going to connect in odd ways, almost like they're set to cyclic. I'm not sure why, but it's a nice little workaround there. Also do a little bit of trimming just in order to give some gaps between all of them. You can see these little small gaps here. And then we do curve to mesh, bada boom. Now this time I did listen to my own advice and we did create a profile right here. So this is the profile for the wall segments here. One kind of interesting difference is this is actually a mesh object. This is not a curve object. A little bit more control if you're just using a mesh, and you can just give it a mesh to curve if it's a single empty mesh profile, empty of faces. All right. Then we colorize each of these wall segments. We're using the factor of the profile, so the circular profile, not the length, the profile curve, to mix in these two colors right here. Yeah. Bada boom. It looks pretty good. Enjoying that? All right. Now, that same edge path that we extracted earlier, we kind of use it again, but this time to distribute this little wall pillar along. First, we actually gave it some color. Then we take our curve here. We're resampling it in order to just get the very edges. Again, there's a little bit of goofiness with curves when you're trying to distribute points on them or turn them into a curve to mesh. Because they're split, it doesn't quite know how to complete them. So I found this to be a nice setup. Resample it to just 2, so start and end, and then we just get 1 point out of that. And we just put 1 point at the very end. It actually won't let you manually do this to 1. See, I'm trying to scroll down to 1. You have to enter it manually. So you just get the start point. That way there's no overlap. So I do use a merge by distance in order to clean up these different segments that are quite close together. And then we instance. Put them on there. Rotate the instances a little bit randomly. We're also taking the nice part about using the curve is that it has an inherent rotation, normal, and we can align our little instances to them. Yeah, and we just join that all together. Join that again, and set the material. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Definitely let me know if anyone has any questions. You're always welcome to throw them down into the YouTube comments. I'm going to shoot for doing another one of these, not this theme, but we're going to do another video tomorrow, another daily. This is available for free on my Gumroad. You can download it, pull it apart, see how it works. But I hope it's a good learning exercise. Definitely hit a like, hit a subscribe, support me. I would love to keep doing this, especially once we start adding some game elements and getting these into VRChat same day. That's the goal. All right. Thank you all. Have a good one. See you in the next video.